We have 5 minutes until we go live. Is Mr. Byer joining us tonight, or is his first meeting out of the big chair off?
Welcome to the Oscoda Township Regular Board Meeting, November 28th, 2016. Let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings.
Here.
Ms. McGuire.
Here.
Mr. Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Nordine here. Mr. Byer.
Here.
Mr. Weed.
Here. Any agenda additions?
Mr. Gasky?
Here.
Does anybody have any agenda additions? All right, then I need a motion to go into the public hearing for the fiscal year 2017 proposed budget.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Gieske, supported by Mr. Byer. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. All right, Mr. Stalker?
The purpose of the hearing this evening is to receive public comment relative to proposed fiscal year 2017 budget document. The Township Board has met in work session format to talk about the draft budget. Some modest changes were made to the draft budget and resulting in the proposed budget. The process requires that we have a budget in place by year end. There is a resolution a little further on the agenda called the General Appropriations Act Resolution, which, if adopted, would approve the budget for fiscal year 2017, including the wages and salaries that are set forth in the budget document. There's a requirement that separate resolutions be adopted for each elected official's salary, so those are on the agenda also. It's probably important to note that the budget is a plan. It can and will be amended undoubtedly next year, but it's intended to reflect the best of our knowledge right now regarding projected expenditures in the upcoming year.
All right, do we have any comments regarding 2017 budget? Any public comment regarding it? All right. Then, I guess it's time to come out of our public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Byer, supported by Mr. Gieske.
Alright.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. All right, time for public comments. Do we have any cards?
We do not.
All right, there is another public comment at the end of the meeting. During that public comment, there's 4 minutes to speak. You do not have to fill out a card. However, if you have any questions, please write those questions down, and a board member will get back to you to answer those questions. All right, for the consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any questions regarding the minutes? All right, and for finance, payment of bills of $81,956.74. Any questions regarding the bills?
Just a comment, Mr. Palmer brought to my attention today, and I will verify again the alert janitor services. There might be a duplicate payment that's in our report, but we will fix it before the bills get paid. So there may be an adjustment of $1,150.
Okay. Any other comments?
Was there a question about a late fee in this budget, for this approval? And, I think there was, late fees and
Visa cards, yep, and they've been happening for the last couple months. I don't know if it was brought to my attention today because of the account that it was charged to, but I saw it should be charged to the unallocated and not to the departments because it wasn't their fault the bill was late.
Do we know what happened? I'm just curious.
They just didn't get paid on time.
Is there any, since you mentioned that that's happened a few times for the last few months?
I think that there's a process for prepayment that we can do for the prepaids that we do. We write checks every Tuesdays, and maybe that just wasn't taken advantage of. I'm really not sure.
So I'm just curious, is there a change now? The treasurer's office will be paying the bills instead of the clerk's
That's
office?
correct, yep.
Okay.
Jane in my office will be doing the accounts payable, and we're working to contact all of our vendors and set up our process, how we're going to handle the bills and utilize the software to the best of its ability.
Okay.
All right. On to the superintendent's report, which has on it the Sunny Buns operating report for the year 2016. Any questions on that?
Bob, was that quite an increase from last year?
I don't recall the exact number, I believe it is.
It's quite an increase.
A substantial increase, actually.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, any comments regarding environmental consulting services for lift station number 25?
I just want, have any results come back on the sampling?
They have, as of today, actually, and there were no VOCs detected in the soil. They did not encounter groundwater, so that proved not to be an issue.
Good.
Any comments regarding the Fair Labor Standards Act compliance for exempt employees? All right, then I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Ms. McGuire, supported by Mr. Cummings. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. Okay, on to the superintendent's report. First one is the letter of understanding. Go ahead.
Thank you. This letter of understanding will be with the Oscoda Township Employees Union regarding healthcare labor process. The labor contracts and the personnel policy contain provisions that allow employees to waive healthcare coverage under specified circumstances. The process, which has been used for many years in keeping with those provisions, is that an employee wishing to waive coverage must execute the waiver by December 31 for the following year in which coverage will be waived. For several years, we have been participating in the program. However, in the current year, we had several employees that were either hired or transferred into full-time status. These employees were given the opportunity to execute the healthcare waiver form on a partial year basis, with the apparent understanding that prorated reimbursement to them will occur. And those payments are typically made in December, so recently there is a discrepancy between the policy and past practices and what had happened earlier this year came to light. It specifically would affect 2 employees in the Township Employees Union and 1 non-union employee. So the attached letter is intended to address the current situation and allow for prorated reimbursement. It's based on the premise that it is in the township and the employee's best interest and presumably would remain in effect moving forward. I think it's also likely we will have discussion with the other bargaining unit about this concept as well. So essentially, when an employee, a full-time employee eligible for health care comes on board mid-year, they would be eligible for the prorated waiver, or if somebody transfers from part-time to full-time status. Otherwise, we would use the existing process where you're required to waive a year in advance once you have knowledge of how that process works. So if the document is considered acceptable to the board, I'm looking for authorization for the supervisor to execute it with the understanding that we would bring back a proposed amendment to the personnel policy, and also that the non-union employee involved would be entitled to the prorated reimbursement also.
Any comments or questions?
I just, you mentioned that the waiver is signed at the end of the year, every year, and that covers the upcoming year. So then if a new employee comes on mid-year and signs a waiver, is that just to cover that year, or would that also cover that? Or would they sign it again in December?
They would need to sign it again in December.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well then I need a motion.
I'll move that we execute the letter of understanding.
Moved by Ms. McGuire, supported by Mr. Cummings. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes. Okay, next subject is the Community Center Advisory Group Millage Committee.
Yes, during both recent Township Board and Village Committee meetings, the subject of reconstituting our Community Center Advisory Group has been raised. In the case of the Village Committee, the mission, as I understand it, that was discussed, was to look for input from the group relative to year-round operations potentially in terms of consideration of topics like necessity for full-time management, development, promotion, and marketing plans, service enhancements, new activities, etc. So the idea would be to develop an operational plan upon which a budget could be established, and then moving a step forward, potentially the millage to support that concept. So from a perspective, I think of the millage committee, they're looking for feedback which could be converted to a proposal for purposes of discussion at some point in the future. The underlying goal here would be to develop a high quality recreational experience for community members. The committee also, if one was constituted, could look at the current question that's been established as to which hours should be cut during the existing operating season, wherein customer participation is limited, so that they could be shifted to the spring and or fall to extend the operating season. Again, input from folks using the facility might be helpful there. The other potential purpose of such a committee could be to evaluate cost-cutting or revenue enhancement strategies. We've had some of those under discussion recently. That's basically what our previous committee was convened to do, and they spent a lot of time and effort doing that. But there could be new opportunities and topics to consider since the committee quit meeting actively. I had contacted the previous chairperson for the advisory group. She's willing to serve with a repurposed mission, if you will, for the committee. And at this point, I'm asking for feedback from the board as to whether you would like to move forward in establishing such a committee. If so, we would talk with her about representation, but obviously appreciate feedback from the board also as to who you think should be represented, at least from a group and community standpoint.
All right, questions or comments?
I'm very much in favor of setting up a committee, and I think Andy Laporte made a comment last meeting that we better do this kind of quick. If it involves money-saving measures and things, the earlier you start, if these money-making or money-saving measures are worthwhile and workable, then we should get along with it, you know. So I'm in favor of such a committee, and as soon as possible.
What would the committee be comprised of? Would it be any board members? Would it be purely community? Who would it be?
Previously, and I think there's some merit in revisiting some of the membership assumptions that were made before. Previously, it included a couple of board members, actually, but I would suggest that at least one would be important so that there's continuity there with the committee. Probably involving, one thing I spoke with Mary about was the need to maybe involve some of the committee members who were on before, again, for continuity. But we also have some new stakeholders. The pickleball group comes to mind, potentially, et cetera. So maybe a combination of the older group, that representation there, and some of the new concerns and interests that have emerged.
Makes sense. Thank you.
How large of a committee was that previous committee? Do you remember how many?
I'm going to say 9 or 10. It's a pretty large group.
We had some snowbirds on it, but sometimes it got as high as 12, I'd say. But 9 or 10 is a fair number. For sure, that committee should include the director of the community center. So,
That makes sense.
Well, I would move that we move forward with reestablishing that committee.
support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Byer.
Is there a mission outlined here about the millage and cost-cutting measures, that type of thing? Is there a goal?
Yeah. It'll be helpful for our millage committee. Get that information.
Roll call.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. Do we have any volunteers from the board who wish to be a part of this committee?
Aaron, I was on the committee before I was a township official, and I'd look at going back on it.
Okay.
And I'd throw my hat into the ring as well. I mean, if we want choices here, only because I was bringing it up last time and proposed the budget, but I mean, I think that's up to the board as to who they see fit. It's fine.
All right. We don't need a motion on that, do we? We just need to.
We don't, and if the board would like, we could come back from the staff standpoint with some general recommendation as to membership, at least in terms of the groups that might be involved and so forth, and we can talk further about specifically what the board representation might be.
All right. Is everybody in agreement with that?
It's fine.
All right, next item, the DDA holder tractor purchase update.
Yes, at our last meeting, the board approved the purchase of a Holder municipal tractor, subject to the Downtown Development Authority's potential participation in a service contract that would reimburse the township for our costs of clearing the sidewalks in the downtown area. The DDA board actually met on November 22nd to talk about that concept, amongst other things, although that was the primary reason for their meeting. They were advised of the board's action and the fact that the costs were estimated to be about $85 an hour, taking into account the rental rate on the machine itself, the blower unit, labor benefits, and a 10% overhead factor. I note that the rental rates come from the Michigan Department of Transportation scheduler. As a result of discussion, several concerns were expressed by the DDA board of directors, namely that they're involved in two large projects now, the farmers market and the lighthouse restoration efforts. And they also had some discomfort with the open-ended aspect of that type of an arrangement, whereby the weather and the type of snow to clear and those types of things could dictate a cost more than they're anticipating or essentially can't control. We talked about potential of a cap, and there was not a comfort level established with a not to exceed sum. So in the end, they voted not to approve the service agreement, and therefore this matter is being brought back before the board. We have not moved forward with the holder purchase given the contingency with which it was approved originally. I should note that the DDA did indicate that once there's more financial certainty for them in the future, they might be willing to revisit the discussion, but right now they just are not confident as to exactly what their financial commitments might be over the short to midterm. So essentially, with that information, do we want to proceed in considering purchase of the machine, or look at a different strategy and defer for the time being?
All right, questions or comments?
Well, I was just wondering, rather than purchasing more equipment, I know last summer we put out a bid for private contractor for our mowing. And from my observation, that came off quite well. I was just wondering if we could do the same for our snow removal.
We certainly could solicit proposals, yes. Whether Whether there would be interested parties and at what cost, we just wouldn't know until we ask that question.
That's gonna take some time, Bob. And do we have a deposit on this machine now?
We don't.
We don't have any deposit on it, so that can be gone tomorrow.
It could. I believe Mr. Hamlin made them aware of what had happened, and they had agreed to hold it until at least tomorrow, is my understanding. But certainly it could be gone in a shorter term, yes.
Is there a value to having this piece of equipment? I mean, I kind of look toward the asset aspect as opposed to a service which has no asset associated with it. I just pay it and it goes away. Is there, can we kind of talk a little bit more to what we had in the last conversation 2 weeks ago about this, where we could find out how this would be used and what value it would be to the township
Well,
beyond snowmobile?
it could be used for other purposes. My understanding is that you can buy a leaf blower attachment for it. So, Old Orchard Park's a major challenge with leaf removal along our own park. So that's a possibility, potentially a sweeper that I'm not certain about, but they do come with a number of alternate attachments that could be a benefit. We had purchased the unit originally on a used basis with the primary focus of snow removal because of the unique width of it.
Bob, what's the ratio of the snow plowing from the DDA's aspect to the rest of the township that use that piece of equipment for?
I'm going to say that the majority of the snow plowing occurs near the downtown area. Whether it's in the district is a question mark. And a significant caveat there is whether we use that machine to plow out F-41 to the entrance to the Wordsmith district. Because that's a long time.
Piece, yeah, that's, yeah, I was thinking. Would they be able to use that piece of equipment there with the, because the sidewalks are a little narrower, I think.
They would. There are times when we use regular pickup trucks
I was
because
gonna
what
say.
happens is you have 2 lanes of snow that get pushed over on those sidewalks, so it gets very heavy, very dense. But
Right.
the older unit was, and this is a higher performance unit than what we have or had. If it was up to the task, I think we would use it.
They use that on their primary when the plow truck can't move the excess snow make it wider. Then they bring the holder in and blow it back so they can plow the snow back again with the trucks.
My feeling is this, a lot of communities provide services. Now, I know there's a difference in property tax rates between cities and townships and so forth. I understand that. But, you know, as far as people raking leaves out to the curb and there's pickup, Oscoda, for instance, paves roads and does not have any kind of a formula to charge their customers at all. Snow plowing in the Tawas is done at city expense. Again, I realize there's a difference between the millage rate for property and so forth, but my point is that there's a lot of services that are provided by communities, some with higher tax rate than we do, some with very similar tax rates. Oscoda in their road paving program, as an example. So I don't have a problem with us, you know, we're not just providing a service to 1 or 2 merchants. I think we're making our whole town and business district better if we provide clean sidewalks and so forth. I'm not too worried about such and such a drugstore or a bookstore or a beauty salon or something like that. Just clean up the whole town as far as because if we leave it to individual businessmen, to clean their own sidewalks, then some will, some won't. Then we get into a deal about we're gonna do it ourselves, but we're gonna hit you with an additional tax to pay for what we had to do, and then there's ill feelings about that. I think we should do this. If they're holding this piece of equipment, the newspaper referred to it in the early part of the article that I read today, because I've been out of town, but they talked about a used holder. It is virtually a brand new piece of machinery. It's been taken to some demonstration shows, maybe started up a few times inside of a convention center or something. I don't know if it's ever really done any real work of pushing snow around. One other further thought is, could we possibly share with a financial remuneration being part of it, this thing with some, like Oscoda has sidewalks that go up over the bridge, and do they clean their walks? Would they be willing to have us do it at a cost? Could we put it on a truck and when we don't need it and go up to Harrisville and clean their sidewalks again for, you know? Of course, there's a downside to that. You're using your piece of machinery more and wearing it out faster, but I can see it as a generator of some income. But my main point is, I think it's a service that we can provide, like some of the other services that other communities do provide. And I think we should grab this machine. I said that 2 weeks ago, and I repeat that. So.
I'd like to say that I agree with you, Jim, and I don't mean to say that the idea of trying to find services isn't a good idea to Mr. Palmer's suggestion. I think that's a valid approach as well. But I like the fact that there's utility in this piece of equipment, and it's more than just snowplow
Right.
or snowblower. So.
My concern is with the impending financial crisis we have coming up, and this is an $80-some thousand purchase, and if we use it for other services, then we've got to purchase additional attachments for it, so we could be looking over $100,000. I think if our economic situation was better, then sure, this probably wouldn't be as much of an issue. But I'm strongly in favor of Mr. Palmer's suggestion to look into a contract service, because it's not such a high initial upfront cost that, you know, it's something that could help us stretch our dollars a bit longer while we try to resolve our overall township budget problem.
Well, I mean, if we could have gotten some commitment from the DDA for some portion, this, my original thought was if they could cover the difference between what we budgeted for this equipment and what the actual cost would be, is roughly $14,000. If there was, I'd hope there'd be some sort of a commitment, but apparently that was not able to be agreed on. So.
It looked like, well, and I don't know how strong the feelings were, but it says in your narrative, Bob, about that they acknowledge the possibility of being able to contribute in the future. I mean, was that a strong, you know, we really have a lot on our plate right now, and yeah, sure, we'll look at it again, or were they just like, no, you know, we just don't feel like we need to do that?
No, it was clearly voiced, and the sentiment was voiced that they would be willing to revisit it in the future. There was no commitment made, I should be clear on that. The view is we have these things on our plate, we didn't anticipate this need coming along, so we're just not comfortable taking this on right now.
Right.
I think the term you used was some sort of near to midterm time range. I'm not sure exactly how long that really means, but it sounds like it's maybe a year or so, is what I'm guessing. I mean, considering those projects are probably lengthy for the new building. And
Right, well, the artisan market hasn't even gone out to bid yet, so we have some projected costs, but we won't know those until the project comes in, so we have a better idea in the early part of the year, I would say.
I see, okay, thanks.
I guess, Aaron, what really bothers me about this whole concept is we know this piece of equipment had to be replaced in the future, and we only budgeted $70,000 for a $100,000 machine. I mean, I think we cut ourselves short by doing it that way. I mean, if we know this equipment ahead of schedule is gonna cost us a 6-digit figure, we should have had it down 2 or 3 years down the road to buy a brand new one. by budgeting so much a year. But I think with the condition what we got to work with right now and the price of this new one, I think I know it's tough to spend this kind of revenue, but if we have a hard winter, we're gonna be behind the 8 ball trying to remove snow.
Yep.
I can tell you that right now.
Can I ask what the status of the new machine, or the current machine is? And to Marty's point, was the intention always to buy new or to buy used when the time came?
The $70,000 was thought to be a more than adequate figure to buy a used machine.
A used machine?
Yeah, because we originally paid $23,000 approximately for the one we had.
Mhm.
So I think from the staff standpoint, we thought 70,000 should be a good number to find a good used machine. And at the time that the budget was originally developed and that number was plugged in, because of the exchange rate and so forth, the cost of the new one was substantially higher than it is now
It's-
on a relative basis.
It's my understanding that this is such a unique situation that it's $84,000 is so close to our budget. That's why we're considering this next to new machine. Otherwise, the assumption was to buy used.
Correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
so I wonder if we're too enamored by the new machine, if we should just continue to look for a used machine, if that's an option. If the status of the current machine is enough to get us through another year, is the possibility there for continuing to look for this may be the best deal we'll find, but a deal that more suits our situation and is still a good deal. That's
And I think part of the reason this particular opportunity came forward is not that we can't continue to look, we've had trouble finding.
okay.
So that's why the newer piece of equipment had some lure. I guess.
Okay.
What is the status of the present machine?
It's operational. It had a different engine put in it approximately a year and a half ago. I spoke with DPW folks about it. Nobody can guarantee it will operate through the winter, but everything's functional now. It's an older, used piece of equipment. It was doing the job when we stored it, and probably unless there's some catastrophic failure, which could happen, it will continue to do the job.
A comment to John's concern about maybe we should stick with our policy of buying used. There's a difference on what you're buying, whether used is a good idea. For instance, recently we bought a brand new fire engine, first time since 1997, I believe. But prior to that, we bought used fire equipment and got some really good ones. And our fire chief had a connection with a couple of towns out east, in Maryland to be exact. And these are wealthy communities that really wealthy communities in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. And they have a plan where they get a new fire engine about every 3 years or every 4. Whether there's a problem with them or not, it's just in their budget. They just going to get a new fire engine every 3rd year. So getting a used fire engine from that venue, to me, makes sense. But a used snow machine, you're getting it from a northern state, Minnesota, Wisconsin, someplace in Michigan, is probably beat to pieces from pushing snow. It's not like the fire engine deal, where a perfectly good fire engine is just that we want a new one. We want to be snazzy every 3 years. I don't think anybody wants to be snazzy with a snow machine every 3 years. If it's a used one and it's for sale, to me, it's had some heavy lifting, heavy use. So.
And our current used one has been very maintenance intensive.
I don't think we've discussed this, but if we do really go down the road of looking at this equipment, and we've got to figure out the other $14,000, have we thought of something else we could cut as a way to balance that out? I mean, I don't recall the discussion, but has that come to anyone's mind?
Right, and we're at a point where we have to start making cuts in the smaller areas. We've made cuts in the low-hanging fruit, as it's been put, but now we need to start going for the high-hanging fruit. And because of the financial issues coming up so quickly, it's crunch time. So if we continue to plow snow, we've got to come up with other alternatives as to where we're gonna cut.
It's not actually a cut. I guess conceptually, one could argue that we save money with the leaf impeller / blower arrangement as compared to what was originally budgeted. In that you might recall, we had budgeted for a trailer in replacement of the impeller, and we opted to repair the truck instead. So we will expend less money than originally budgeted in the Old Orchard Park Capital Improvement Fund. That could be redirected, I think, legitimately towards purchase of this equipment if we assume we were going to use it for leaf blowing, if we're committed to buy leaf blowing attachment moving forward.
By doing that, we could cut the work in half at Old Orchard Park, as far as labor, time of labor.
That's true too.
Bob, do we share equipment with any money involved with, let's say, ensemble, Vector truck, bucket trucks? Or am I wrong in that?
We borrow each other's equipment occasionally. There's a very good cooperative working relationship,
Yeah.
but it's not an economic arrangement.
Okay. Because I know that when there's some digging to be done, I don't know how many times I've seen Cal Taylor in a backhoe working on our project, so it's kind of a, I'll help you, you help me.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Have we talked to Old Orchard Park about purchasing a leaf blower for this?
It's been mentioned, and I think there was recognition that there would be value there. We haven't really explored it in great detail.
It was mentioned in the last meeting. It came up.
In regards to the leaf blower attachment using at Old Orchard Park, what kind of wear and tear would the leaf services put on the machine? I guess as compared to snow removal, would it be much more, or?
I think it just attaches to the front with its own power unit.
Okay, so,
All you're gonna do is drive it.
all right.
One could assume, and I guess it's a bit more question for DPW folks, one could assume if you're operating in dirt and soil, it's gonna do more wear than snow.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt.
What if we just kept looking for something used, like John said, maybe, and wait till maybe we can get a firm commitment from the DDA to contribute, possibly?
I'm in favor of that. I would hate to pass up this deal for this holder, but I don't think our finances are adequate for it. But, any further comments? Does anybody have a motion?
Yes, I do. Let's just see where this goes. I make a motion that we go ahead with this basically new holder that is being held until tomorrow. With us.
I'll support that.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Cummings.
And the total price is 84.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roll call?
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
No.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, no. Mr. Palmer?
No.
Mr. Weed?
No. Motion failed.
Okay.
Do we have another motion?
I'll make a motion that we try to get through with the unit that we have and continue to look for used or fairly decent price, lower priced unit, and try to get a firm commitment from the DDA to contribute in some manner. I don't care how it is, when they can.
I'll support that. Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Weed. Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Byer?
Well, I think my motion received a fair hearing, so we need to do something here, so I'm voting yes.
Mr. Gasky?
No.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
We've got to do something, so yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed?
Yes. Motion passed. I would like to make another motion that we look into what the costs and logistics would be to have a contract service for snow removal.
I'll support that motion.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer.
All right.
Can I ask
Roll
a
call.
question regarding that? I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Where will that service contract be funded?
That's why I would like to look into it,
Gotcha.
not establish it.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call when ready.
All right. Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. Motion passed. Next item on the agenda is drinking water dispensary location change.
Yes, just for informational purposes, the drinking water station behind the Township Hall is going to be transitioned in the near future back to the community center and then return to the mother. Thought it might be helpful to mention that publicly. I think a lot of folks taking advantage of it, and we've initiated discussion with District Health #2 representatives regarding that process. So in the not too distant future, we'll be making the switch. And then the second informational item I have is follow-up to discussion at the last board meeting, wherein it was suggested that a specific limit be put in the compensation plan implementation policy such that a new employee would start within 10% of the beginning wage rate. There would be a cap for all practical purposes, and that would mean step 3, between beginning and step 3 from a mathematical standpoint. So before taking this particular topic up with the bargaining unit, I want to confirm with the board that that change is consistent with the direction that you provided.
I just want to say that I'm a little concerned about tying our hands pretty much and not giving ourselves some type of wiggle room. I thought the way it read that in the first couple sentences that you still had the ability to deviate from that, you know, should there an occasion arise, which I know that it's happened in the past, you know, different things to try to get the best candidate for the jobs, you know, in any part of the township. So I'm concerned about tying our hands here.
Any other comments?
I would just like to say I share some of Ms. McGuire's concern with that, and also I have a concern that it logically, I don't want to say contradicts itself, but in my mind, I can't wrap my head around the beginning clause 1 and the later clauses that talk about when a part-time employee transfers to a full-time position. I believe the situation may arise where you could have a part-time employee moving to full-time that then would be above step 3, which goes against the first clause in my way of thinking, and that's just a concern of mine.
Any further comments?
Well, I think I like this wording. I think it's important that we have some sort of a cap on the starting salary. Otherwise, it gets into a, it can get into a bidding contest or something. Just totally get out of control. I think you're allowing three-step levels of determination by whoever's doing the hiring, and that gives them some room to accommodate a more experienced or qualified candidate. Otherwise, we could just say, well, everybody's going to start at the beginning salary, and I don't think that would really be fair. If you have somebody that's more qualified, certainly you want the best possible candidate you can find, but I think there needs to be some reins put on that. So I'm happy with this wording in this policy.
My other, just in clarity's sake, I guess, I know that with appointed positions, is that included with appointed positions because they're not in the union and they're, appointed, not hired? So would they fall under this plan also, or would there be some type of revision to exclude them from this?
Well, I suppose the appointees are not employees technically, so it would be at the board's discretion whether they wish to apply these policy parameters to that particular group of folks.
The only reason I'm bringing that up tonight is because under that Fair Labor Standards thing that Bob was talking about earlier, I don't think that appointed or elected officials fall under that Fair Labor Standard Act, so I just didn't know if we wanted to try to keep it all the same or what. So just a thought.
All right, next item, Community Development Coordinator. The 6121 Perimeter Road preliminary offer to lease.
Thank you. As the Township Board will recall, the tenant at 6121 Perimeter Road has a lease term that currently expires on March 31st, 2017. Due to restructuring within the company, they have chosen not to renew their lease. A fair market price for the sale of the property was established, and it, along with the option to lease, have been advertised on the Township's website and MED Zoom properties. Over the last several months, the properties have been showed to several interested parties, and recently I was presented with a preliminary offer to lease the property that is on the agenda this evening. The interested party would like to enter into a one-year term lease with an option to extend in the amount of $7,500 a month, triple net. They have requested possession of the building as soon as possible. The lease that is currently in place with Size & Schmidt is in the amount of $10,450 a month. And if the board was inclined to approve the preliminary offer being discussed this evening, it would be necessary to terminate that lease prior to the March 31st expiration date.
Comments?
Well, I'd like to see us move ahead with that. I think we need to have a tenant in there. If there was some way to rate the lease so that we could still keep it for sale.
Right.
So that, we would have a provision in there that we could sell the building and not renew the lease, or however we could word that to have that availability, because it would be nice if we could sell that building, but this would be $90,000 that we'd be bringing in next year.
Yep, just to help with the upkeep.
$90,000.
Mm-hmm. $7,500 a month.
With the new tenant, do they want the entire space or just a portion of it?
Well, they don't necessarily need the entire space, but there's no way to partition that off, so, yes.
Okay, well, but it kind of matters in the sense that even though we don't clean it off.
That's kind of why I'm assuming that's why they're offering the less amount. They don't necessarily need all the square footage, but the way the building is set up, the offices are centrally located, there's a divider in the middle, you couldn't separate things off.
Do we know how many employees they're gonna employ?
I asked that question, they did not give an answer. Some will be transferred from their existing location, and then some will be new hires.
And where is the existing location?
It's actually the Mint Group in Tawas.
Okay.
And I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. No, I believe that's correct. I pronounce it.
And did they talk about expansion at all?
They did not give me details.
Does it seem odd to you that they want a place for a year?
I would assume they have something on the books that they need something that size, but they don't want to commit to longer than that at this
Okay.
time. They would like an extension for a net.
They
I
had at
think
least
Mr.
a lot
Palmer's
of,
suggestion of continuing to market it for sale would be a good one.
Is that possible? Is that,
We would have to, I would assume, that we could.
it is with residential homes, you can rent
Mhm.
a house to somebody
Right.
and let them know that I want to sell this house,
Right.
so
that
you can
something-
rent
I would
without
assume
that.
We could write something like
Yeah.
that in there. Obviously, they would have to be able to, finish out their lease or have some kind of clause.
they have leased a lot of property from Gary from the airport in the past. They have leased quite a few buildings in the past,
They have.
so they're a good reputable company.
Do you know if they continue to lease, or is it like a 1 year?
Well, no, they
thing?
bought another plant
Okay.
and consolidated everything.
Yeah, they
Okay.
did move all of their services down.
To Taos.
down to the Taos.
Any other comments?
I have a question. Is it possible they're just going to use that for a warehouse or something like that?
No, they had, they had indicated they needed the machine shop. I mean, that there would be jobs there, it's not a warehouse.
Okay. Second question is, in your narrative here, you indicate and remind us that Schmidt is paying $10,450 a month.
Mhm.
Do you know, or does Bob know, what did Schmidt start at? Is that the amount that they started from day one?
No, this was a reduction. We did this with that last lease renewal. We reduced by, it wasn't a tremendous amount, I want to say. It was a couple thousand. Yeah, I think it was a little, yeah, so it was a little bit less. And then what the other concession was, or what the other savings to the tenant was that we took over the insurance on the building, which our actual insurance agent recommended, so.
So basically what you're saying is the $10,450 is the least that they've ever had to pay, the lowest.
Yes, it is.
And that was not a triple net then?
No, it was, they have to pay the taxes on the building and then their liability insurance and all the utilities.
Will we still maintain insurance on it as well?
Right, there's several different types of insurance.
Okay.
I'd like to say, I think this is a good opportunity since we don't have any other offers on the table and
Agree.
leaving it open for sale. And if there's no offers for sale, at least we've got somebody in it for a year.
Right.
And they may want to go for another year.
Just to make the board aware, I did double check with the other interested party that we received the offer to purchase earlier this summer. And at this time, they're okay with us moving forward with this rental, so. Just made them aware that we received an offer. So they've been working with them for about a year on that property.
Well, I would make a motion that we move forward with that offer to lease at $7,500 a month.
I support that.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. All right, next up is Wordsmith District offer to purchase real property.
Okay, before we move forward, just to make sure, the suggestion that you had made, Mr. Palmer, is that a deal breaker if they will not, agree to allow us to still try to market the property for sale?
No, as long as we have an option on the end for continuing the lease. That's at our
To
option,
okay.
to renew the lease
For
after a
an
year.
extension on their,
Right.
right now.
So just for clarification, that's with a clause that we can still market the building,
Yes.
as well as if not that, so a clause to market the building and or continue an extension with the lease.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And, or, you want both?
Do we want both, or
It's
do we
only
want
if it's
just
a deal breaker.
or?
Right.
So just or.
Yeah.
So you only want to continue the lease as long as they turn down the.
Yeah. If
Okay.
we can't sell it out from underneath them, we at least want
Want to be able to get out.
Okay.
Get out
I
at
won't-
the
I
end.
won't
At the
suggest it
end,
that way.
yeah.
I'll try it out.
And if we don't
That's
have
rather
a-
crude way to
Oh,
put
no,
it.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
so
and
much
if,
better.
if at the end of the year we don't have any interest in buying it, and they wanted to extend it for another year,
Oh,
that'd be
yeah,
fine.
yeah, that'd be beneficial.
Could you write down your motion?
Sure.
All right, for clarity's sake here, we have moved to accept the offer for lease at $7,500 a month with the restriction that the township is able to continue to make the property for sale and that the township has the option to renew the lease. Is that still supported?
It is.
Okay, so just to make sure, let's go through the roll call again. And
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
yes.
Alright.
All right, motion is passed. Now on to the wordsmith offer to purchase real property.
Thank you. Included in my report is information in regard to tax parcel code 006-028-300-006. This property is located in the WB3 area on the Wordsmith District and is currently listed for sale by the township. The parcel is 22.63 acres. The northernmost boundary of the property is at Perimeter Road and runs south along Georgia Drive. The former OED office property, which is about 1.44 acres, is located along the western boundary around the top 1/3 of the property. The current asking price is $32,500. My office received an offer to purchase the property in the amount of $22,300. This offer is being made contingent upon the Planning Commission's approval to rezone the property from its current WB3 to a WR3 to allow the potential for the construction of an apartment complex development, which is an allowed use in the WR3 area. I would note that the adjacent property to the south is currently zoned WR3, and the property directly to the east is zoned R4. That's off the Wordsmith District. To explain the methodology for the reduction in the price offered by interested parties, the parties looked at the recent sale of the 8,000 area as a comp. The property had been established, or had an established land value of $73,200 by the assessor, and the township accepted an offer of $50,000 on that property, which we did close on, by the village of Oscoda. This could be computed to a 68.3 reduction in the value of the property. So the individuals making the offer on this property used that 68.3% reduction in price and came up with, this property was valued at roughly $32,630. We had it listed for the $32,500, and they did the math and came up with the offer of $22,300. So I would be seeking direction from the board in regard to the offer on this property.
All right, comments?
Yes, I have some questions.
Okay.
What is the, can you tell us what the properties are that is currently labeled 20, and the 3 lots that appear to be adjacent to one another stacked vertically on the map? Essentially, these would be properties that this apartment complex would have to build around, and I'm curious to know just what that would be and what.
I'm thinking that 20 is the OED, 20 is the OED office, and that's WB3.
The old one,
Right,
okay.
yeah, I'm sorry, the old OED
That's
office,
right,
yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
And the other 3 you mentioned are pathways to learning, are they still
Those
there?
are, those are adjacent, those are currently zoned, the WR3. Adjacent properties are zoned WR3 to the south.
And they're still there,
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
so they're gonna be surrounded virtually by this.
All right.
Project.
Well, they're in they would be towards, I guess, maybe the,
Except for Georgia Street frontage.
no, it butts up to, well, yeah, they would be surrounded behind, I guess,
Yeah.
yes.
So this
But
property
that's
is
on the
behind
same
those,
thing.
this
Yeah.
property is behind all those.
Behind and both
Right.
sides.
Right, yeah.
Do we have any kind of, I guess the answer is gonna be no, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Do we have any opinion from Pathways, what they think of this? I can see where it might increase their business.
Mhm.
I would think so.
Well, I mean, I guess you'd have to say, would they want a business there with parking, manufacturing, you know, I mean, I shouldn't say
Right.
manufacturing, it's WB,
Yeah.
or residential, so.
Right.
They have residential just right next to them, across, not really across, I guess, kitty corner would be to the village of
Yeah.
Oscoda, and then behind.
Well, I'm not suggesting they're gonna be against this, I just wanna know if we know
No,
what
that
they
would-
think.
That would be a discussion that would be taking place at the planning commission meeting, though, all the
Yeah.
adjoining neighbors. you know.
Right, I send out the letters.
Yeah.
And this is actually the same individuals that have already gone to the planning commission for another property along, F41.
That was my second
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, and we weren't in favor of the proposal he brought at that time. It was for rental housing as opposed to an apartment complex.
Right.
I think an apartment complex is a great idea for Oscoda Township. That's something we desperately need.
Agreed.
So I would be totally in favor of accepting that offer.
Are you, Ann, you buy into their rationale for how to come up with 22,300?
You know, I suppose an argument could be made by the fact that this is a smaller piece of property compared to a larger, but, you know,
And-
we
and
did
much-
just recently accept that, you know.
What,
Mhm. They actually did have a lower initial offer, and I had done a little bit of talking with him, because they said the 8,000 area was what comp they were using. I said, well, if you're using that as comp, you need to come up a little bit,
What-
because you're a little bit low.
was
so.
the 8,000 area, refresh my memory, was that 52 acres?
It was 60,
60 something.
62 acres.
62.
Yeah, 62 acres, and originally, I mean, I'm looking at the assessor sheet, it was 62 acres, and it had a price per acre established value of $1,181. As this is a smaller piece of property, 22.63 acres, our assessor had a $1,442 per acre price established.
Okay.
So that, the apartment complex that they're looking, that they're considering at this time is quite a substantial building. Should be, pretty good investment in that area.
I agree.
There's $10,200 difference between what we were asking, what they're offering. Should we split the difference? The difference is 5,100. Should we just say 5,000? Move it up to 27. Is that?
I think I'm with Bill. I think that I'm happy that somebody was taking an interest in building out there and creating more housing for the people in the area. So I'm happy with the bid.
Absolutely. I agree, and with the thought that the previous chunk of land that was sold, to my knowledge, is just nothing's being done with it, and they got the comp deal. Considering these people are going to potentially develop it, I think reason to stay where we're at.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is a way that the township can facilitate a developer trying to do something in
Absolutely.
the township. And in whatever way we can help to facilitate that, I think would be a positive move for the township, so.
And we were saying that we haven't met with the zoning board yet.
No, we
This is
would,
just a-
right, the sale would be contingent upon the zoning, or I mean, the planning commission changing the zoning. And we could make it then, a condition that if the planning commission were to change it, that they would commit to purchasing the property, that they weren't asking for this based on some kind of a speculation.
Right, yeah, because I can foresee a number of questions about ingress, egress in this area and coming through residential area, and so that's why I was wanting to make sure we weren't being put in the position as the board here to adjudicate the appropriateness of such building.
Right, right. Well, the condition, the contingency is on the change in zoning, and I believe I was at the planning commission meeting, when they discussed the one on F-41. All they approved was, the changing in zoning. They said that you'll have to come back with a site plan and
Right.
abide by all the restrictions and so on. So that's a completely different can of worms, I guess you could say.
Well, we would go through the same
Right.
process for this property.
Right.
We would do the requirements for making the change.
But there would be no they would not be interested in the property if the zoning couldn't be changed, because although the WB3 allows for transient housing, for employees doing business on the Wordsmith district, they don't wanna just target employees that are working on the
Mhm.
Wordsmith district. They
Sure.
wanna have, the availability to have apartments to, anybody in the community, so.
Well, that's a benefit to the whole township.
Exactly,
That's what
so
we
that's
need.
why the change would be necessary.
Right.
All right, do we have a motion?
I will move it that we accept the offer of
22.3.
22.3.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. Motion passed.
For clarification's sake, we're accepting the contingency relative to zoning then as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
John got that, this motion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, next up is resolution and ordinances. First is resolution number 2016-19 for fiscal year 2017 General Appropriations Act.
This is the resolution I had mentioned during the public hearing, which if adopted would approve the budget for fiscal year 2017, which has been prepared and made available for public inspection and input. The resolution format is patterned after what we've used for many years, whereas I would be superintendent, the chief administrative officer, the treasurer would be the fiscal officer. The budget's adopted by reference, again, inclusive of wages and salaries that are set forth in the document. The specific appropriations are identified by fund, budget being adopted by cost center within each fund, and that basically means the activities within each fund. And there are periodic fiscal reports that are required to be produced to allow the board to monitor the budget throughout the year. So if the board is amenable to adopting the budget and the resolution, with the exception of the wage which is again, the elected officials, which are the succeeding resolutions.
Any comments?
I move we adopt Resolution 2016-19.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Byer, supported by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. Motion passed. On to resolution number 2016-20, establishing township supervisor salary.
There is a resolution for each of the officers of the board, supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, and then one for trustees. I note that the specific salaries represent a 2% increase as compared to what they were this year and going back actually a few years, I believe. So that's consistent with the salary schedule.
All right.
That's consistent with contract settlements.
It is.
With all the-
that as
yeah.
well, yes.
Any other comments? We have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2016-20.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Byer.
Okay.
Roll call.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed?
No. Motion passed. On to resolution number 2016-21, establishing township clerk salary. That is in the amount of $45,751.02. Do I have a motion?
I'll move. We approve resolution 2016-21.
Support.
Moved by Ms. McGuire, supported by Mr. Palmer.
Okay.
Roll call.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. Motion passed. On to resolution number 2016-22, establishing township treasurer salary in the same amount as the clerk of $45,751.02. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we accept resolution 2016-22, establishing the treasurer's salary at $45,751.02.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, supported by Mr. Byer. Roll call.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. Next up, resolution number 2016-23, establishing township trustee salary at $4,193.02. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept resolution 2016-23, establishing the township trustee salary at $4,193.02.
Support.
Motion made by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed?
Yes. All right. Motion passed. On to resolution number 2016-24, fiscal year 2016 budget amendments number 3.
Thank you. These are the budget amendments involving road improvement fund, which is the fund immediately following the general fund, all the way through to the Old Orchard Park Fund, and expect that the next and last meeting of the year will have the water and sewer fund budget amendments. By way of highlighting a couple of significant items, the Old Orchard Park Capital Improvement Fund, the grant has been backed out. We're not going to be getting the grant this year, obviously, for the boat launch improvements, and actually the engineers recommended that we get it early next property O&M fund, a significant impact there is more of the VA expansion project being expensed in the current year than last year, as was originally anticipated. So there's an increase there of over $100,000. It's simply the way it's spread across the 2 years. Most of the other adjustments are fairly straightforward, but I want to point those two things out.
Any comments? Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept resolution 2016-24, the 2016 budget amendment number 3.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. Motion passed. On to ordinance number 2016-258, prohibiting the feeding of birds.
Okay, try number 4. Okay, first of all, I'd like to apologize for last meeting. I was not able to attend. I was not feeling well, and Bob had to present the ordinance. Unfortunately, when it was given back, Mr. Eppert, our attorney, had made the changes as requested by Trustee Weed, and I did not realize that he went back to the original document that he had first drafted, and that had the information about private as well as public spaces, and I did not pull that word out. So when I had first came back to August, I think now, started drafting this document, the first draft had private in there, and in one of our first meetings, we took that word out, but somehow we got back in there, and I apologize for missing that. So, it was not intended to be in there. So, this draft is, does not have any reference to private property. It's just for the public parks, which is what it was intended to address. So.
Any comments? Have a motion?
So move.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Gieske, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, no. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. Motion is passed. On to other clerk treasurer offices duty realignment.
That, I believe it's mine to speak to. All right. Not to step over. Just so that the board's aware, we wanted to let you know that Jamie and I have talked about essentially trading accounts payable, which was normally a function of the clerk's office, with general ledger, which has previously been a function of the treasurer's office. We feel like it's a move that helps align us with suggested and statutory requirements of our offices, and hopefully will improve efficiency on the day-to-day operations of the township. I feel like we've seen a little bit of that already, so hopefully that is our hope. So we wanted to make you aware that that is our intention.
Yep, we got big team building skills going on. Looking forward to it.
All right, next, deputy treasurer pay rate establishment.
As you're all aware, the last time we talked about this, it was a pretty interesting conversation. I just wanted to let the board be aware of, because of the workload in the treasurer's office this time of year with taxes and end of year and audit and things coming up, I did appoint Jane to be my deputy, and she was sworn in last Monday. I would like to revisit her pay establishment. I recognize that one of the motions that was made last time was a 3-3, and had I voted yes, that would have passed to have her at a step 3. I wasn't comfortable just going ahead and doing that without talking to her first, so that would be my reason for not voting for it at that time. So it's my intention tonight to ask if the board would approve her at a step 3.
If my memory is right, it was start at a step 3 and go to 4 in a year, the anniversary. Is that part of your?
That was the motion that, yeah,
Yeah.
I should have voted yes for, but I didn't want to do it without talking to her
Okay.
first.
Was that a motion?
I'll
Well,
make
I
it a
mean,
It was, well,
Okay.
oh,
No, I
last
mean,
time.
I didn't know if what you
Oh,
just said was
yeah,
a
okay,
motion,
that
or
could
if
be
we
a
have more
motion.
comment.
No, I'll be happy with that.
Do we have any comments?
Well, I would just like to say that I think that the clerk and the treasurer should have the right to appoint their deputies as they see fit. I think the only covenant to that is in the pay, which the board needs to, and I think with our new policy, with our restrictions, I think that's covered. So with that, I would make a motion that we accept the nomination of the deputy treasurer at a step 3 for 1 year, at pay rate of step 3, and with increase after 1 year.
Okay, so 2 motions for you.
No. Was
I'll
that-
rescind mine, how about that?
Okay.
Okay,
Do we have support for Mr. Palmer's?
I'll support it.
so that'll be her anniversary date like it's supposed to be then, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Gieske. Roll call when ready.
Mr. Cummings,
No.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion passed. Deputy clerk appointment, pay rate establishment.
Okay, I provided you all with a copy of our candidate's resume.
I wrote my motion.
Yeah. Excellent.
I already read it.
Her name's Shelley Kimsel. She actually attended the meeting tonight, if that is of importance to you. I would like to offer, I have offered her the job, and she has accepted contingent our wage decision tonight. I hope to appoint her as soon as possible, and she will be starting at a later date. So my hope was to start her out at a step 2, and then with the standard increases after that at anniversary dates. My rationale, if you all care to know, is that she has what I consider to be quite a lot of experience in human resources, and that's something that our office deals quite a bit with, and something that I could use a lot of help with going forward, given my new responsibilities. So that's how I.
So that is your motion?
If you need me to make it one, yes, I.
Just want to make sure I understand. If
Well, I wasn't, but I will move to start the deputy clerk at step 2, with an anniversary date, step 3, as normal.
Support.
All right, motion by Mr. Nordine, support by Mr. Byer.
All right.
Roll call when ready.
All right.
I'm sorry, one quick question.
Yes.
I did not hear you. Your deputy designee is in attendance tonight?
Yes, she is. Yes.
And
And who
she
is that?
Raise your hand.
Yes,
There you
right
go.
there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. McGuire,
yes,
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. Motion passed. Next up, Furtaw Field use request by the Chamber of Commerce Fun Run Walk.
Yes, the Chamber is hosting a new event, and they would like to use Furtaw Field for a place to convene prior to the event, and registration to take place on December 3rd. And they attached a flyer describing the event. They're obviously optimistic that it will be approved. And it appears to be relatively innocuous use of our property, and their insurance policy dealing with township events presumably will be in place. So they're asking for that approval, and I should mention as a side note, we're making reference to the chamber. At the last meeting, there was discussion about potential use of a township generator in conjunction with parade and a train set for children that needed to be powered. We had thought of the township had equipment that would suffice. It turns out the generator they have is wrong type, so we are planning to furnish a generator at this point. Just wanted you to know that. Kind of unrelated, but change in plans.
I move that we go ahead with the Chamber of Commerce's request for Fertile Field.
Support.
Support by, or motion made by Mr. Byer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. Motion passed. Next up is appointment of Cedar Lake Improvement Board representative. Typically for lake improvement boards, a township supervisor would sit on that, but it's not mandatory. Mr. Byer has sat on that board for a number of years and has expressed that he would like to stay on that board, and considering he lives on Cedar Lake, that's probably most appropriate. Is that still the case?
I accept everything you said, except Mr. Byer is willing to serve on that board.
All right.
Little arm twisting?
So I make a motion that we make Mr. Byer the Cedar Lake Improvement Board representative.
I'll support that.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Gajewski.
Okay. All right. Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. Motion passed. Next up is Township Board Rule Amendment consideration. Within our operating procedures for our meetings, under paragraph 2.2, it talks about special meetings. And within that, it gives notice shall be given to each township board member served personally or left at the member's usual place of residence by the township clerk. I would like to add in there email notifications dependent on the preference of that particular board member. Does that make sense?
Yep.
In paragraph 8.2, it talks about committee duties, and within that it shows dates and times. Those have changed over the years, so I would like to just remove those dates and times, so just list the committees. Paragraph 10.1 talks about, let's see what it says here. It says, no motion or resolution shall be adopted until the motion or resolution is stated by the person chairing the meeting. By law, whatever motion is made, it's whatever that person says that makes the motion. I don't want to be the person who restates that motion, could be paraphrased or anything, so I think we should remove that statement. Replace it with something such as motions made by a board member are to be written as stated by that board member.
That sounds good to me.
If necessary.
Are you saying you want all motions written down?
Right.
No,
No,
or.
he'll write those down.
Okay.
I see.
That'll be part of the clerk putting that in for the
Okay.
minutes. The time to actually write them down is such as when there's some confusion. We want to make
Right.
sure that we're clear on those details. And I would like to change the comment cards. I would like to add on there a line for a person to add in their email and their phone number, so they can determine which way they want to be contacted. And then also within that same page, show a couple of the paragraphs we have within our adopted rules that explain how the comments are to be made, how the board is to respond to those comments, so that the person making those comments is very clear on the rules. Otherwise, they walk in here and they have no idea what they are.
What you expect.
You need a motion on that yet, or we're going to wait for a revised draft?
If you want to provide a motion as direction, it would have to be
Can you say that again?
provide a motion as direction subject to the revised document coming back.
All right. So I'll make a motion that we revise those paragraphs subject to final approval of the draft.
I support.
Motion by Weed, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call when ready.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed?
Yes. Motion passed. All right, we're at the second portion of our public comments period. A reminder that you don't have to fill out a card, but it is 4-minute time limit. And any questions you have that you want a response to, please write those down and provide that with contact info, and we will get back to you with a response. Does anybody have any comments? Go ahead.
I just wanted to get some clarification on a comment that Jim made concerning that a committee be formed which would address the community center, and that there was maybe some urgency in possibly acting on some things now so that these cost-saving measures could help this work. That's great that we started a committee, but it seems like we started the same old committee with the exception of Marty and some of the new ideas that people brought up. I haven't heard any consideration of new members. Well, it was actually Tim. And Marty, you were on the committee before, and we discussed this at the workshop. You didn't think any of the ideas worked and that it was kind of pointless, and now I'm surprised that you want to be on the committee again after it seemed to have, in your opinion, fail miserably.
No, I made the comment that we tried a lot of new things and they started to go off right at the beginning, and then the people kind of faded away. But with new faces and new ideas, I have some other ideas I want to try too.
Some of the new faces aren't going to be on this committee, it doesn't sound like.
That we're going to be picking people.
Okay.
This is not cut and dried, is it, Bob?
No, but I'd like to get to Jim's point that we could take cost savings measures now. I mean, the board could actually do something with data that they have on hours of attendance. They don't need a committee to get that. They just need to look at the attendance and some things that we talked about in the workshop. I'm fearful that another committee to study all these things is just more smoke and mirrors. It's just going to waste time. And sadly, that's what I think has happened over the years. And it'd just be a shame when really there's some obvious things that are no-brainers that you could do right now.
Well, I take exception with part of what you said. There are some things that can be done right now, but the term smoke and mirrors on what we did before, there was a lot of work by Martin and his idea with the banners and so forth, and not to pat myself on the back, but all the driving to various townships around here to try to recruit members and talking the committee into not having, like in college, outstate tuition. If you live in Curtis Township in Glennie or Mankato Township, come on into our center for the same price. I don't think those were smoke and mirrors. I mean, people actually did things.
I sat down with some of the members in that committee, and that's what they told me. I had lunch with them, took them out, and they were a little disappointed that a lot of good ideas didn't even get tried.
Okay.
So that's where my concern lies, and now we've got the same old committee, it seems like, starting. When really, I thought your point, Jim, was that, well, Andy Laporte brought up, let's act on something now. And
Soon, let's get going, but tonight or something, that's a little bit of a stretch of at least what I meant, I think we should get the committee formed before we make decisions, unless you want this board to, in place of a committee, the board to make all the decisions.
Maybe I didn't understand correctly, but at the workshop, I thought that some good ideas could be, a motion be brought up to adopt some, especially concerning the operating hours where there's nobody in there certain hours. That data's there. I don't see why that couldn't start now. There are good ideas that could be implemented. You don't need a committee to study it for 2 years or whatever. Well, that's the smoke and mirrors I'm getting at.
Okay.
More wasting time. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else have a public comment? Yes, sir, go ahead.
I don't know. My name is Dan O'Connor. I'm from 6130 Ridge Road in Oscoda. And I don't know if there's an answer to my final thing as a question. But I just want to say that coming to these meetings is really important to come to these because you learn stuff. I think it was back in August, I came to a meeting and I found out something about a plume of water with PFCs coming underneath Lake Van Etten and over into my neighborhood. And I was shocked because I didn't know that. I've been keeping up with it as far as what they thought wasn't going to happen, is that the effluent of the Van Etten Creek and the lake itself was going to keep that plume from, coming over, but it didn't, and I was surprised at that meeting. So then in September we went and we found out that there's solutions temporary for our neighborhood, and I got the solution, and it's a $900 filter underneath my kitchen sink, and I went online and found that $900 filter I can get for $200 to $300 almost anywhere. Under reverseosmosis.com, you start right there and you see you can get a $300-400 one. Looks just like the one that Culligan sells and puts installed your house for $900. $1,100 is the amount of money that people are going to get for their solution, short-term solution, which I'm not complaining about. I went for it. That's one I want. I didn't want the water jug, on top of a cooler, and it was a cooler, and then, so I went with that solution. I was happy with that, but I think my point is that the next thing I did is I tried to see if I could get city water brought over to my house, because I heard, connections were available. Well, the connections have to go from the west side of 23 underneath the road and over to my house. Well, I thought, I got 4 people in my neighborhood that have already done that. So why not me? I'm no different. I look like them. My money's the same as them. But I found out, no, you can't do that. And I kind of heard the reason why was because, there's going to be money coming soon. And you might have that water brought over on a bigger pipe instead of all these 1-2-inch pipes coming over one at a time, like your neighbors down the street. So I'm just waiting for that day, but in the meantime I've got and the Culligan man's very happy. When he found out on that August meeting that he was going to be selling these filters, he was happy. He was ching 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 ching, and he's a happy guy. I talked to him on the phone. He was ecstatic. I would just try to get a little deal out of him. $900, I thought maybe for a really inexpensive deal he could just plumb me up to my ice maker. He said, I could come back and do that for $85. And ching, 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 ching. I thought, okay, that's enough of that. I can get the parts for $10 and install it in 15-20 minutes myself. I don't think that'll cost me $85. But anyway, somebody wins and somebody loses. And I guess that's all I really had to say. Just letting you know where your $1,100 is going.
For clarification, the $900 estimate for what it would cost.
Yeah, you wrote it.
Came from.
Wrote it down. $900 right on a
came
receipt.
from the state, the federal government.
I know it wasn't you
out-
guys. I know
No.
it wasn't you guys.
That's where
I
I'm
know.
going.
I know. Somebody wins and somebody loses, and I'm really happy for the Culligan guy because you take advantage of whatever business deals you get. If it comes from the Air Force, the federal government, the state, or the local community, doesn't matter. You take advantage of it. I was kind of disappointed in the $85 for the ice maker. I guess that's where I'm at. But I was really disappointed about not being able to connect to city water until a grant comes to put a header down my street so I can get it, even though I have 4 neighbors who've already done it. I was a little disappointed in that. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, board comment? Go ahead.
Winter tax bills are ready and they're gonna be mailed December 1st. If anybody wants to come help stuff envelopes, I've got 10,000 of them to do, so come on in.
Any other board comment?
Yeah, I have one. Probably Dan has just alluded to it. We have problems that we talk about. Should we buy a holder or not, or should we sit back, or, you know, various things. But I don't think we have any more serious problem in this community right now is what's in the ground coming off the Air Force Base.
I agree.
And with that entry, we've had 2, maybe 3 meetings where the state has come in, federal officials, and we meet at the Methodist Church. Who lines up that venue? Do you know?
Christina, well, the State of Michigan Health Department. I mean,
Okay.
the original meeting used to be held at the Township meeting room.
Yeah.
And then that's not a large enough room, when it started, the situation started growing.
Right.
Plus the fact that we had some issues, with parking, and then we sold the building. So they picked that venue, because it's centrally located and I think the park.
Yeah. And the church just says yes to that.
I am not involved in the arrangements, so I'm assuming that there's no fee, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
If that's a great question.
Well, my question really, and I'm taking a long time to get to my point, is I'm the kind of the thank you guy, and I really think that this doesn't solve the problem that's in the ground, but it just amazes me that the Oscoda Methodist Church is willing to let us use their building each time for this very important topic. And I think we should thank them.
I agree.
Really. So, I don't know if they get thanked by the state or anything, but let's layer on, let's express our appreciation for them doing this. So it is so important to this community, so.
Any other comments?
I would like to congratulate you, sir, for your election success and running a very good meeting tonight. You're not too bad. You beat the 9 o'clock deal.
Thanks.
No, really, good job.
I just, we talked briefly about it, but the Northern Lights Christmas Parade is this Saturday, December 3rd. New this year is the reindeer run. That's what we were talking about actually. It starts at Furtaw Field. It's no cost to enter. It's just brand new. So see where it goes. Costumes are not required, but there's bonus prizes depending on how you come to dress. You can bring your dog to walk and so on. So it's a run or walk. But again, no registration cost. Just some fun prizes to go along with it. And then also new this year is going to be a community bonfire. And also the generator that Mr. Soccer referenced is to power up a amusement ride from Schmidt Amusement. The train that was brought here this summer for Paul Bunyan Days, the same train is going to be located behind where the Paddletown Hardware just came down. So Vince Eller has allowed the CVB and the chamber to use that space. That's where they're going to be having the community bonfire as well as the train. So that starts right around 3:30 or 4 o'clock and will run up through the parade. The parade lineup is at 5. You don't have to register to be in the parade, but you can. And the parade itself starts at 6 o'clock. So we encourage you to come out and be a part of the around the community bonfire. There's going to be Christmas sing-along. There's other vendors that are going to be setting up around town, selling baked goods as fundraisers. Class of 2017 is selling glow necklaces and earrings and different things. So we're hoping it's a good event. I haven't even looked at the forecast to see what Saturday looks like, but hopefully it's not rain. Maybe a little bit of snow. So anyways, yeah. That's it. Thank you.
All right, well then I need a go ahead.
I would just like to mention that the Planning Commission held a special work session to go over the master plan, and we went extensively over the objectives and the goals. not with Mr. Bean, just our committee, and we went quite a bit of time going over all of those points. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we're trying to put together a meeting between this board and the planning commission. And I talked to Tammy, I believe Friday morning at 10 o'clock is a tentative.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Last thing.
We are adjourned.